Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining today. Just give it a few more.
Yeah, David, let's give it a couple minutes. We are right at 2 o'clock, so let's give it a couple minutes for people to join, and then we'll get started.
Yes.
Hey, Jamie, how are you doing? I like the I like your backdrop on that big bison.
Oh, he's muted. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's a Longhorn, Texas Longhorns. We're down here in
the
Austin
Texas
area.
Longhorn. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Aggies.
Just give it a few more seconds to give a couple more people a chance to join.
It's Friday anyway. Finally. One of the few remaining summer weekends that we have.
Don't say that.
Yeah, the school in Virginia open up on 22nd. So yeah, it's just a week or something.
Yeah, I'm in Massachusetts. They start the 29th, but it's going to be here soon. My daughter goes off to college the same day.
Okay.
Exciting
You're
time.
ready for it?
Yeah, never.
Never. Yeah, that's true.
All right, should we just get going? Do you think?
Yeah, that's good.
Take a time.
Yes.
All right. So, well, keep in mind we're also recording this webinar, and we'll share it with all the people that registered and the attendees after. But thanks for joining the webinar today. It's scheduled for 45 minutes. It's actually tightly packed. We'll present what we generally present during a demo of Hire2Retire with our customers and prospects. That usually we have an hour, so we have a limited time here. We'll leave some time. We'll do about 30 minutes or so of presentation, overview of the company and the product, and then we'll leave some time at the end for questions. But please ask questions along the way if you have them, and we'll try to answer them as quickly as possible. So just introducing the company for those that may not know us, we've started in approximately 2013 as an API and data integration company, and we have products that are code and no code and connector based products like iPass. In 2021, we formally pivoted to focus on one business process automation, which is employee lifecycle management, plus identity access and resource provisioning automation. Essentially, we get the data from the HR system, and based on the employee profiles, we create the identity into the identity platform, including email, providing privileges, group memberships. Then you also have the option to do third-party access provisioning and also integration with ticketing systems, help desk systems. Now we're also very strong in role-based access control and attribute-based access control, as well as and the ultimate goal is to automate nearly everything that a sysadmin would normally do in our product, which is where the ROI and cost savings come in. That benefit of having everything automated. I do have a short deck. I'll get into just a few slides to give you an overview of the product. And then Brahm, who's on the call, actually we didn't do introductions. Brahm Gupta is our head of products. He'll do the demo of the product, and so you can see all the features and benefits that I'm talking about now. So let me jump into my some slides here. Just give me 1 second. So let's share my screen. All right, can everybody see the first slide there?
Yes.
Okay, actually, yeah, everybody's on mute, so why am I asking? Um, let's see. So the product solves, a simple problem. Creating employee profiles in the identity platform, giving the privilege, giving access, managing their life cycle processes from onboarding to change of role determination. It's boring, tedious work, mostly by costly sysadmins, people, and we automate it as close as we can to 100%. By having the product in place, there's some benefits. You provide first day somebody comes in, everything's set up for them. They have their access, their account is set up, and they have that superior first day of work. That sync, the profile changes from HR as the source of truth, keeps the gal and the org charts current. Who is who. Changes, and the changes that are made can be propagated across the organization into other systems. We are also big on role-based access control, as well as attribute-based access control and access provisioning into third parties based on who you are or need to know basis. Resource provisioning and service desk integration. We can delegate, some of the work into, service desk systems like GRS, ServiceNow, like Freshservice, and many others. All in all, we manage the employee lifecycle identity and access privilege. And by doing so, it allows you to, reduce security risk, meet the complex compliance requirements around SOC 2 and ISO 27001 and others. And we also have tools built in to show evidence that you've met these requirements, in reporting tools and other tracking that we do. That's not often provided by Interactive Directory or Entra ID. Very, very horizontal product. We're in all sorts of industries, all sorts of size companies. This is the origination of the product, if you will. Topgolf, which has about 48,000 employees today. They came to us in about 2015, or at the time about 12,000 employees, maybe 10, 12 locations, and they look, we need an army of sysadmins just to do this work. And can you build something to help us automate these processes? And that was the origin of Hire2Retire, and dramatic cost savings for a company of their size by having the automation in place. So this is a graphic representation of what we provide, the automating of the onboarding process, that creating and updating identity profiles, keeping everything current. Role-based access control and ABAC, and privileged access management based on attributes and who they are, and then cross-functional coordination and team communication with help desk ticketing systems, Microsoft Teams, and others. Typically, what we see is companies have some sort of a manual process in place. On the left, the information gets put in HR system as a source of truth. There's a ticket that gets created, or a form gets filled out. It sits in the queue for who is responsible, and then the emails, they make those changes. They notify who needs to get notified, and that can easily take 2 hours with everybody involved. Hire2Retire automates that whole process. This is a functional overview of the product. It's important. It's a picture of what Bram will present during the demo of the product. On the left, we get data from the HR system, typically through either in a CSV extract file or through an API, depending on the HR system and your choice. We apply a set of complex algorithms and rules, and in the workflow that you define, the yellow box. And in addition to that, we put people into the right groups, security groups, OUs, distribution lists, and all the like. And then we connect to your Active Directory or Entra ID or Google Cloud, if you use it, or a hybrid model. We connect to any of those sort of setups. And then the last mile integration as well with third-party applications, ticketing systems, to provide you that full lifecycle process and automation process. As I mentioned earlier, there's a big emphasis in the security industry today, cybersecurity industry today, for role-based access control. We strongly support it, as well as ABAC. And then we're also, in terms of rate of how we treat our customers, we're very highly rated. If you've been on G2, it's very passionate about the support we provide our customers. You have dedicated, as a customer of ours, you'll have a dedicated customer success team that are assigned to you, and we provide proactive monitoring, 24/7 support, very high quality service and product running for our customers, and you can see the reviews that we get. So that's pretty much it with the slides. I'll turn it over to Brahm, who will take you through the demo of the product.
Thank you, David. Okay, so as we get into the product, I'll just come back to this slide deck that David presented. So from a functional perspective, we are in the lightweight IGA category, which is lightweight identity governance and administration. We are not an identity platform full-blown because, as you see, we leverage AD, Entra ID, and Google Directory as a identity platform, but we are primarily in the employee lifecycle management, access provisioning, identity provisioning, resource provisioning, privilege provisioning. And the end goal of the product, or what functionally the product does, is it's going to automate almost, I would say, 95% of the work that a sysadmin in an organization does. So typically what we see, and I think most of you all will relate to it, is when you hire somebody, a sysadmin will take somebody who's similar to him. So let's say Michael joins. Michael is similar to Adam. You clone the Adam's profile, and then you make some changes, and you have another profile created. Now, from that model of manual working, we do full automation where every decision, the creation of the account, what privileges do they get, what access they get, what kind of profile is created, is all driven by the HR employee attributes that we get from the HR system. So HR becomes the source of the truth, and then HR profile is translated into identity, access, and privilege profile into the identity systems. So this is really the view from a functional perspective, and now I'm going to show you the product where we can see how it is translated or what the product does. I have 30 minutes. I'll try to cover as much as I can, and then, of course, feel free to ask questions. So when you log into this product, you log into this page, and as you see, there are multiple workflows. We support almost 23 HR systems, which include majority of the HR systems and the few ATS or recruiting systems, which are meant for getting pre-boarding done before the data is available on the HR system. So for the purpose of this demo, I'll just pick up ADP as a HR system. So I get a bunch of these workflows, which are ADP, and you can run as many workflows. If you see, there are different type of workflows. So one is ADP to Google Drive, one is from hybrid AD, another one is you have for Entra ID also, which is ADP to Azure AD, and there are multiple feature combinations that we have. So based on what features and choices, you might be in a multi-domain environment, you might be as simple as Entra ID. Those are the differences, as well as what is your integration mechanism from the HR systems. Now, at a very, very high level, if you go here, there's an option to build a workflow, test the workflow, and share it with someone. Mostly that someone is somebody in the operation, so that we provide this segregation of duty as to who builds the workflow, tests the workflow, versus who runs it as a production workload. Now, I'll pick up this one because I'm very excited about this supervisor mode that we initially introduced. So now if you look at this workflow, before we get into more detail of the workflow, what I'll show you is the version history. It's an enterprise workflow. It's creating identity, so it's very critical. And then this is no code, so you can make changes, you can redeploy the workflow, but sometimes things don't go right. So in such situations, you can always revert back to the last known good state. Second thing, what you see here is an overview. So as you build your workflow, So as you build your workflow, whatever you build in the workflow is spit out in plain English. So this could be, think of it like a design documentation, think of it like a documentation of your employee lifecycle and identity management process. And this could be useful when you're having some internal discussions and so on. And you really don't have to click the check boxes and other things in the product to show them. So this is the English summary of it. There's another feature in there. There are scenarios in which you may not be able to get the data of the employee from the HR system. Scenarios is like you're hiring contractors. Contractors' data is not put in the HR system, so you can enter the data using this form, or you can upload a CSV file which has the same data. So that way you can manage the contractor identity to make sure that when the contractor's term date come in, which is the end of their SOW, their access is removed. Now from overview, there are these multiple tabs. So identity is the bulk of the workflow. This is where we define most of the workflow, where we create the identity and we give the privilege. Service desk, we're gonna use it if we want to create tickets or create incident or trigger workflow in one of these service desk platform upon employee being hired, terminated, change of role. Any of the employee lifecycle events, you can trigger the workflows, you can create the tickets, or you can create a task in that service desk system. Access is where we provision third-party access to third-party applications, and I'm going to get into this detail. Observe is where you see what has happened, like what events were processed, what was the result, and so on. And this review is one new feature we added, which I'm very excited, and a lot of customers had asked, because what it allows is that when earlier we used to run in an autopilot mode, which means as we get the data from the source of truth, which is HR, we'll process it, we'll create, update, or change identity, access, and privilege in the identity platform. But now you have an option to review before you change. So this is a new feature added, at least in the beginning when you are starting to go live, you don't trust the platform, this could be a good way to go, and later you can switch into autopilot when you're fully comfortable with it. So getting into the identity, which is the starting point. First part is you're going to choose the application. So basically you choose one of these HR systems, 23 as I said, which includes some of these ATS systems, which allow you to get the data ahead of the employment start date so that you can do the pre-boarding, Greenhouse, Paycom pre-boarding, Paylocity pre-boarding, ADP recruiting, and iCIMS. And we continue to add more. Then you have, so once you choose these HR system, one more thing I wanted to highlight, which is across the product, anytime you're there, you can click on this question mark and you get this contextual help, as well as you can see this contextual video of how to use the platform at that particular stage. And you will see these two icons across the product. Once you choose the HR system, you can choose how you're going to get the data from HR system, extract or API integration. Everybody makes their own choice, their consideration of cost, technology, and others. But functionally, the product has a parity. So it doesn't matter whether you get the data from extract or you get from API. You get the same functionality from Hire2Retire, because end of the day, the identity management platform just needs the HR attribute. You can choose your identity platform, which could be on-prem, hybrid, or cloud only. We see these hybrid and cloud only most of the time. Google directories in certain sectors like education, they are more on the Google directory. And then you choose how we talk to your on-prem AD. If it is an on-prem AD, you have two options. One is the on-prem Docker agent, or you can go with the VPN. Again, the choices you make based on your own security consideration. And then there are a bunch of these options that provide the functionality or alter the behavior of the product. So most important one is we are totally date-based. So we make the decision upon hiring, termination, change of role based on dates, which is start date and last day work. We support future transaction or scheduled transaction. So for example, somebody resigns, we get a 15 days notice. Nobody has to sit at 6 p.m. on that day to terminate the account. The event will be scheduled and everything will be done per the workflow. And similarly, we have features where we talk to your on-prem AD, we talk to Entra ID, we talk to SharePoint Online, we talk to Exchange, because all of these Microsoft components provide certain capabilities that we provide as part of the product, like shared mailbox, ownership changes, OneDrive, ownership changes, managing the groups on Entra ID as well as on-prem AD in case of hybrid setup. So all of that, you can modify that behavior by making the choices. So basically saying that these are the things we support. Then once you have set up what is your environment looks like, you connect to the systems, which is HR systems based on whatever mechanism you chose and your AD system. And then once the connections are in place, then we get to the next step of getting the data from the HR system. I've chosen a workflow which is based on extract. So you can simply upload the extract, it will recognize the fields, and we get these set of fields. You're not limited to what you get, but these are the recommended or representative ones. And then I'm gonna get into the details of what broadly we want. So first thing we want is a unique ID, which is associate ID or employee ID. Then we want some of these attributes, which are basic EII, first name, last name, preferred name, etc. And then definitely we want the report to position ID. As David was mentioning, that making sure the GAL is current, org chart is current, that is managed by this feed. So when the report to comes in, we can set it up in AD so that your GAL always looks current. And then you get some attributes which are basically collectively called job identifier, job title, business unit, your position, location, country, company ID if you have multi-company setup. All of these will help us determine or put the workflow as to who gets what privilege, because privilege are based on the profile or need to know basis. And we get all that information about the profile from the HR system. Then as I was talking, we work out of the start date and last day worked so that we make a decision as to what operation or what life cycle the employee is in. And then you can get as many number of feeds as you want. You're not limited or restricted by us in terms of only thing you have to define the extract to get the fields, or in case of APIs with the HR system, you're limited with the fields that API, that particular HR system API exposes. We also support multiple time zones, because if you're terminating somebody at 6 p.m. in here versus 6 p.m. in California versus somewhere in Europe may be different. So you can have a support for multiple time zones, which can be identified based on the attribute. And then in case of getting the data from HR extract, since we are waiting on HR to send the data to us versus in API we make a call, we want to make sure HR sends the extract as promised. And if they do not meet that SLA, then we are able to raise an alert so that our system is not just simply sitting and not getting data from HR. You can also apply filters to, you want to process certain set of records. So once at this stage, you define the data that you get from HR, and then we get into the mapping. We support mapping, data mapping, transformation. We have all kind of functions built in. So text function, then you have these like check functions, and then you have time functions and these operators. The functions are modeled on Excel, so there's no learning curve. It's just like an Excel function, but you can apply these functions for data mapping and transformation. If you see an example here, if function is applied, and then you map the data elements from your HR system into the attributes in Active Directory. So here I have applied some checks or some function, how to define the common name. Then we support multiple formats of your UPN. You can have same UPN as email SMTP prefix, or you can choose a different one. We handle the duplicates. And then you can choose, if you have multiple domains, you can choose that. This is where we have something called data translation or lookup table capability. So you can define a local lookup table by choosing employee attributes that you're getting from HR, and you can have a combination of these. So you can put and or logic, build a table saying if this and this attribute, then put the person in this domain versus not. So you have this capability across the data mapping, and then you can map as many attributes as you want, do the data transformation, and then you can continue to add. So very flexible in terms of mapping the data from HR system to identity system, as well as making certain choices on the UPN prefix and format that your organization uses. So by this stage, what you have done is we got the data from HR system, we connected to both the endpoint, and we are able to create the sync of data from HR to Active Directory. So data sync is there, but that's not all, because data sync is just moving the data. We get into the next stage, which is defining your business rule, how your organization want to manage these life cycles. So you can choose what life cycles you want to manage. You have multiple of these long-term leaves. They're very similar, but every organization does not use or use one or other. So we'll get into there. So the first life cycle I'm choosing is hire or rehire. You have an option to choose how the password is going to be structured, the first time password, forcing them to change the password when they log in. Then here is pre-boarding and onboarding. As I was talking, we have integration into the ATS system. So if data is not available in the HR system ahead of the start date, you can optionally build a workflow to get the data from the recruiting system so that you can create the employee ahead of the time. What it helps is it can help you to create ticket or send emails to assign laptop, workspace, other approvals, and so on, so that the employee is ready on the first day, as David talked about superior first day at work experience. So we want to make sure that the person's profile is fully ready. If we get the data ahead of the time, either from the HR or from the ATS, you can choose what time the employee's account is going to be activated. And then you can also choose if you want to activate the account ahead of the start date. Especially in case of remote employees, you want to ship the laptop and you can activate the account 1 day or 2 days before, so that on the Monday morning they are ready for a Zoom call to get the onboarding. By default, we'll disable the account, but you can override that behavior. And you will see throughout the product, there's a default behavior and then there's an option to override, because every organization is different. Now, once we have pre-boarded or onboarded, employee account is created, then we get to the second life cycle, which is change of role. Mostly the change of role, most important thing is how the role change leads to change in the privilege. So how the group membership are handled. So we have here the section for group membership, which I'm going to go get into the detail, but in this life cycle rule, you define, do you want to keep all the existing group I had? So if I move from sales to marketing, do I keep all the groups or do I lose it and only have the sales group? The first option is most common use, where you can use our product to do the privileges based on the role, but at the same time, sysadmin or somebody from outside can assign the group, which Hire2Retire will not touch. So we can have the humans or manually assigned groups coexist with rule-driven groups that we do. And then you have other option where, you can retain certain groups or do not retain any group, and so on and so forth. The next life cycle is termination. So what you can do is you can choose which OU they go in. You can also choose what attribute you want to purge from the profile upon termination, because the terminated record will exist in your identity system for the period of time. You can choose the scheduled time of termination, which means what time the employee should be terminated, and the process will execute. And here you can also make it based on the attribute. So certain departments, certain level of employees can have a different termination time than others. And then, as I was talking earlier, it is time zone sensitive. So 6 p.m. will be according to that employee's local time zone, which is part of his profile. We also support sensitive termination or immediate termination. What happened is, if you have an reason coming in as an immediate termination, then we're going to ignore the last day work, because that is the date to which you will pay the employee. But from an identity perspective, his or her profile will be terminated immediately. And there's a handling of the privileges. Default is removing all assigned group upon termination, but you can override that behavior. There's an option to convert the user mailbox to share mailbox. And you can also apply conditions, because you may not want every mailbox to be converted into a shared mailbox. So you can use the attributes and apply the condition as to who gets shared mailbox. It will be shared with manager. We know who the manager is. Then you can do all of these things, which, if you are familiar with Microsoft Office 365 admin, it will look very similar. You can set up automatic reply for inside the organization as well as outside the organization. Interesting thing to see is that you can use the attributes from the Active Directory, or you can use the attribute from HR to build this template. And then you can choose if you want to delete the employee after the aging period. A scheduled event will be put in and will be executed after that time. And then we come to long-term leave, which is very simple. There are few levers to play in any of these leave scenarios. You can disable the user. You can move the user into a certain OU. You have a treatment of how their privileges will be handled. And That's how you'll be handling the long-term leave. And you can have different type of long-term leave where you can have the different levers pulled for these options, so that there's a like security leave, which is disciplinary or security, versus FMLA is different, right? In case of FMLA, you may not disable the account, but in case of the other leaves, you may want to do that. So at this stage, you have defined, all those things that should happen on each life cycle. Often sysadmins are the ones who are doing it, like shared mailbox, etc. And then we get into the group assignment. So first, I'll take the OU, which is for the hybrid or on-prem AD. So the concept that we use is this rule set or the table. You can add as many attributes as you want. So it basically says if certain combination of attribute matches, then put the person into a certain OU. And it's all drop down because we have a connectivity into your Active Directory. We are reading it and providing you this user experience. And you can build this table. There's a concept of priority because you can only be a member of one OU. And then you can define multiple rule set with different priority recommended ways, put more specific rule set at a higher priority. If I don't match this, I'll be evaluated against this rule set. If I also don't match it, I'll be evaluated against this third rule set. If I match nothing, then we'll use this default OU so that employee at least gets created. Now, the same concept of rule set applies to the other group membership, except that other group membership can be multiple, as well as you don't have to have a priority. So here in case of security group, you can put the similar table, and then you can choose what all security group will I become part of if I have certain employee profile or job profile on my HR record. And you can make as many tables because you can be part of as many groups as possible. And then you can also have a default option where I can be added to the default groups. And then we support all possible group memberships. So we support security group, distribution list, we support Azure AD distribution list, Office 365 group used for Teams and SharePoint management, and the mail-enabled security group, as well as security group available on the Entra ID. So total of 6 here, and 7th is a OU. So this is how the privilege are rule-driven based on rules, which are based on the employee profile. So all based on the employee profile. We have this AI feature in a simple sense without making it sound too big is we are able to run models on your Active Directory. It's a service that you can ask for. And what we'll do is our research team will be able to give you the disposition to say that what attributes drive the group membership. And it will also be able to provide the outliers as to what combination are getting into the outliers. So outlier, you can use it to manage your group membership better. And then the disposition you can use to discover the rules as to who gets what privilege. Because often the rules are not written. It's generally done by, okay, somebody joins, I want to create a profile similar to somebody. Now from there, I'm going to get into the communication hub, which is another powerful feature. So you see these life cycles like pre-boarding, onboarding, profile update, termination. What you can do is upon a life cycle, you can trigger emails. So you can, upon these life cycle events, emails can be triggered. And these emails are templated, which means these emails will have the data populated from AD or Azure AD or HR system. So if I pick up this one, what you see is you attach it to the life cycle when it should be triggered. You can also put a condition as to for what kind of employee you want this email to be triggered, and then you can encrypt it. And then you can populate all these elements from either hard-coded, or you can use AD or HR attributes. And then you can build this template using the placeholders, which will be evaluated at the runtime. And by doing this, you can send the emails. A lot of you can also notify the manager because we know the manager from the AD, so you don't have to specify who the manager is. So you can use it for notification at each of the life cycle stages, as well as you can use it to create tickets because you need the tickets to be created upon each of the life cycle. You know, you want to create a laptop, or you want to collect the resources or assets upon termination. So you can create the ticket using SMTP by building a template like this. So this is one feature of communication as well as being able to create ticket if you don't use the native integration with the service desk. Now, when I get to the service desk, essentially what you do is you can create tickets. Now, these tickets are very well-defined tickets. So I already have possibly a connection here. So let me see. So I took example of service now because it is very feature-rich. Just like the email template, you choose the life cycle. You can define a condition when it should execute, and then you have an option to create an incident, create a record, because ServiceNow as such supports entities where you can add data, or you can trigger a workflow which is defined in ServiceNow. And then you can use it for any of these systems that we support. So that's how you do the resource provisioning. Coming to the access provisioning, we have these SIM connectors that we have hundreds or so. We continue to add. These are offered by RoboMQ, so these have a very simple UX because we have access to all of your data. We can populate it, so the UX is simple, or you can use the enterprise applications provided by Microsoft. Now, these might involve a little more work to set up on the admin side. So if you have some application that you don't find here and you want to get it added, we do it at a one-time token fee of $3,000. So we can add your SIM connector as long as the application provides a SIM connector. And then you can provision the access or deprovision the access based on role-based access control, which is group membership, or attribute-based access control, which is based on certain profile attribute that they have. Now I'll jump to the observe page. This is where you see what we have done. So all the events that have been processed, you'll be able to see them here. And you can also schedule the report. So if you don't want to come here and see it, you can always get that report sent over to you in a platform, a format of your choice and your schedule. Now, let me pick up one example. So for example, James Perron has been updated. There's a change of profile. So when I click this, I get the full data capture. So this is the data that we got from HR system. Then this is the identity profile. If you notice one thing, AD, all these AD platforms are non-versionable. So you don't know what was the previous state versus what you changed, but we capture it. So you can select this and see, okay, what all has changed for this profile. Similarly, you can see how the privileges have changed, what was added, retained, or removed for all the groups that are configured. So you get this full data capture that you can see here or get it emailed to you. And then more than that, what you can also do is get this into your compliance and audit trail. So you can choose SQL for real-time access versus S3 or Azure Block for archival. And here, that full data capture that I was showing will be pushed into these data stores. So this will help you have the audit trail as well as meet the compliance requirement of, say, ISO 27001 or SOC 2, where you can say, okay, I have a process to manage the employee life cycle, as well as I have a proof or evidence that I have done it. Now, jumping to the review feature, which is a new addition, and I'm pretty excited about it. What does it say? Once the workflow has been configured and deployed. Okay, I think I'll have to remove this addition I did. Okay, right. So the records that were being processed, right? If you want to run in a supervised mode, they will show up here, and it will provide the summaries. And here, what you can do is you can review each of the record, look at what change the platform is gonna do, and approve them before they are written into your AD. So I click on this button and I'll say, okay, I get this HR data, and then what AD data it is building, what security group it's creating, and so on. And you can always choose to see just the updated value so that you don't see everything. You see, okay, these are things which are changing. And then once you have reviewed these, you can choose to accept or reject. And then once you have built trust on the platform and your workflow, the way you have configured that it's doing what you want it to do, then you can always switch to the autopilot mode, in which case it's gonna automatically apply these changes into your Active Directory. So yes, 39. I still have 5-6 minutes left for the questions, and I did, I believe, cover most of the platform. And as you possibly I mean, I tried to go very fast, but as much as I could in the short time, because I wanted to show you everything that platform offers so that it's much good use of your time. But it essentially automate most of the work that your sysadmins will do. And that's where the value comes from. And also the ROI or the cost, the ROI calculator that we show in our sales process also goes after that saving that is done by saving the hours of the sysadmin. And other benefits are security, compliance, making sure termination happens timely, making sure organization is always current, making sure people are ready to go on their day one of the job, and still maintaining HR as source of truth. Any, questions you have? So that
Don't be
I can
shy.
address.
I had a question for you. So is it a manual sync or is a manual sync available, or how often would it, for ADP, for example, how often would it sync up to that?
You can choose the sync frequency. So depending upon which method of integration you do, so if you go for API, you can choose that frequency on our platform. So we will make a get call and get the data. If you choose the extract method, in which case ADP pushes the data to us. So in the ADP report generator, you will say, okay, I want this job or the extract job that I have defined to be run at what frequency. You can choose 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, so on. Generally, we recommend in case of a hybrid setup to be anything above 30 minutes or at least an hour, because you don't want to have a race condition with the sync which is going upward to the cloud, because we are writing into the Active Directory and then it is syncing and then we need to do some operation on the Enter ID. So 1 hour may be more recommended. It does affect only sensitive terminations, because if your interval is long, then sensitive termination may not be captured. But what a lot of our customers do is, in case of sensitive termination, they will disable the user on the portal because it's a sensitive termination. They have been notified, and then later, at whatever frequency you have set up, Hire2Retire to run and take care of the rest of the business, like share mailbox, removing the access and privileges and so on. You just have to check the box and you're good.
Gotcha. Another question I had was, does the agent need to be on the same server that if you're in a hybrid environment, you're already syncing up to, Exchange Online, Enter ID?
Yeah, so if you go for the agent-based method, agent has to be on your network. It's a Docker agent. So it's going to be running as a Docker daemon, and it has to be on your network and should have a network connectivity to your AD. So it needs a connectivity into your AD, so it can talk to your AD domain controller, and it will have a service account which has certain restricted delegated admin privileges. We want the read privilege into your AD. We want the privilege to create an identity. We want a privilege to update an identity, and we want a privilege to move you into certain groups, but we don't want the privilege to create the groups. We don't want, of course, a privilege to delete the identity also if you choose the option to delete upon termination. So you give us the admin privilege that we need, and we should be in the network to talk to your domain controller.
Gotcha.
I see the obvious advantages this system has from an IT perspective, but what are the advantages from an HR perspective?
So from an HR perspective, so it puts a responsibility on HR for the data quality, right? So the data should be entered timely, change of role should be updated timely, and so on. But in return, the benefit it gives is typically HR will have to notify IT. They will send either the Excel tracker, email, or create a ticket for any of these employee changes. They don't have to do it, because just by the virtue of them making the change in HR system, it acts as a trigger for IT to do what it needs to do on the identity side. Gary, did I answer your question, or you had something else that was on your mind?
Oh, that was it. My HR director is on this as well, so I wanted just to make her aware of what was going on.
It's a collaborative effort, because, and it is common thing that often it's about getting the data at the right time from HR. And then, some amount of discipline across the two teams is required to get the best benefit out of the product. So you can enable the pre-boarding, which is very valuable because IT gets time to, provision the laptop or ship the laptop or order the laptop if HR can put the data ahead of the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we are getting close, almost at the time. So if you guys still have questions, I'm here. Okay, so if you don't have question, I'll just have one closing remark that yes, it's a no-code self-service based product. It's a user-driven, but when you become our customer, we do provide implementation service. So we call it Quick Start Pro. It's at a very nominal fee, and our customer success team will work with you to get you implemented. We have a full plan of implementation. We will be able to provide how much time and effort is needed. So looking at that plan, you can figure that out. Typically, it's 6 to 10 weeks window, depending upon whether you choose the API route or extract route and how much initial setup is needed. Once you have connectivity and data built in, it is all there. We don't charge for support. Support is fully included in the subscription cost. So the only two costs you will incur is one-time initial setup or the Quick Start Pro that you have, and then the subscription fee. 24/7 support is included in the product subscription. We have team in US and in India. You will have a customer success point of contact from US as well as from India. You have access to our service management, so you can send an email or open a ticket, and somebody based on the time zone will get assigned. And then we are rated very high on support. I mean, I shouldn't just keep speaking about ourselves, but you guys can always check out our G2 reviews. We are very passionate about our customers, and yeah, there's always gonna be issues on the product. It's a software, but we are very open, transparent. We hear your feedback. We do quarterly business reviews, and we provide a great service and customer support to our customers to be successful. So thank you very much, all of you. I know it's Friday, and I really appreciate you giving 45 minutes of your day to us, listening to me and David. And if you guys are more interested, you guys can reach out to us, and we can have a more personalized demo targeted at your needs, and you'll have more time to ask questions on that demo versus this one, which was I tried to run too fast.
Thank you, everybody. And reach out to us if you have any questions after the meeting or anytime in the future.
And we'll share the recording of this webinar with you guys.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
you.
Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.